Every George Gershwin or Rodgers and Hart song is a standard. Think about this. Backstage at the famous Troubadour in Los Angeles in 1979. The place is crazy busy, with sound checks, with guitars howling and drinks clinking. Legends walk the halls. Then, all of a sudden, chaos. A young helper walks into the promoter's office and looks very upset. Ronstadt stormed out of the green room once more. The reason is a single name on the list of performers that isn't hers or the Eagles's, his. She was gone after one look. Not a fight, not a question, just a cold exit and complete quiet. No one knew what really happened that night for years, and Linda, she never said what happened. There were no public fights or tantrums that would make the tabloids laugh. There were just well-mannered interviews and an image of unshakable grace. That silence stayed with her for decades. Now, though, the quiet is broken. Linda Ronstadt is finally being completely honest about the 7 singers she never forgave. These are the people who hurt her pride, pushed her as an artist, and showed the worst parts of the music business. What about the list? It's not what you think. These aren't minor fights or old complaints that are going away. In this age of rock and roll, stories like power plays, broken promises, and quiet payback shape the music. What shocked you the most? Some of the people on that list used to be her best friends. First on the list is a drummer who became famous and used her as a stepping stone before jumping all over her. Also, don't think you know who it is. Who became too big to play the drums? Don Henley was Linda's drummer and backup singer before the Eagles became famous in rock music. He was thankful for the attention she gave him in the early 1970s. Linda Ronstadt was a rising star who packed houses all over the country. That was Henley. He was the quiet one behind the kit, enjoying her fame. He got his first big break from her. Everything changed when the Eagles took off, though. Henley stopped being the humble artist all of a sudden. His pride grew along with the band's fame. The group that used to open for Linda looked like they owned Sunset Boulevard as they walked down it. One person who helped Henley's success get started was brushed off by him as if she were the king of the canyon. It all came to a head in 1975 backstage at the Universal Amphitheater. Henley said something that hurts me even now. Laughingly, he told Linda she should stick to cover songs and let real artists talk about their music. The words were not only rude, but they also put down everything she had worked hard for and done with pure ability. Linda didn't just leave. She took away his tour pass right then and there. There are no second chances. There were rumors in the business world that Henley's pride had not been checked for too long. Friends and Roys talked quietly about his temper tantrums caused by drugs, the selfish choices he made, and the mean things he'd say to people behind closed doors. The thing that hurt Linda the most wasn't just being lied to, but also being treated badly. She would later call him a climber who lost his soul while chasing fame when they were alone. Sammy, you also did something wrong. Because Linda's next fight didn't happen behind closed doors. It happened live in front of a crowd, complete with a drunk singer, a mic being taken, and an embarrassing moment that she never forgot. The night Jim Morrison did something wrong. The Summer of Love had ended in 1968, but the chaos had not. There was electricity in every stage that the Doors played, and Linda Ronstadt was still working hard to make her way in a field that was mostly men. At that night's secret after-party near the Whiskey A Go-Go, stars and outcasts mixed openly, but when Jim Morrison saw Linda, no one saw what would happen. He was already strutting through the crowd with his shirt half unbuttoned and a few drinks in his hand. Morrison pulled Linda on stage without notice in the middle of the show, when he was both crazy and proud. It wasn't planned, it wasn't cute, and it was risky. After that, he tried to kiss her right in front of everyone. Linda automatically pulled back. When Morrison lost his balance, he hit her mic stand and almost knocked the whole thing over. People gasped, stared, and talked. The crowd wasn't sure if to laugh or freak out. Though the moment was never caught on camera, it became a tale that was told behind the scenes and on late-night radio shows for years. Morrison never said sorry. He even went even further. After some time, he made fun of her in a radio talk, calling her sweet but spineless, and saying she was harmless and forgotten. Linda didn't respond in public, she didn't, but when no one was around, her words hurt a lot. People close to her thought Morrison was a clever wreck who ruined everything around him. She saw him as more than just a crazy act. She saw him as a symbol of the toxic manhood that tried to take over the music world as a whole. And while Morrison's actions hurt people emotionally, the next betrayal wasn't said with slurred speech or kisses from someone who was drunk. It happened during a time of unity, when Linda thought she was with friends, supporting a movement she believed in and risking her job to do so, until one of her allies betrayed her. The time when protests got personal. Neil Young, the year was 1976. Big names in rock music came together for a benefit show for farm workers. Linda Ronstadt and Neil Young, two singers known not only for their voices but also for their beliefs, were among them. At first glance, they seemed to be on the same side, fighting for a cause they both really cared about. After the light came on, though, everything changed. When Neil started ignoring Linda's artistic ideas backstage, things got very tense. He turned down her ideas for the set list, wouldn't let her play some songs, and even said her sound was too commercial. Even worse, he allegedly told the press after the show that she wasn't made to protest. It was clear what she meant. Linda wasn't real enough for the fight. She cried as she left the event. What she heard wasn't just an attack, it was a rejection from someone she looked up to and thought shared her values. Being called hollow by another campaigner hurt more than any reviewer could. Things changed after that night. After that, Linda and Neil Young never shared a stage again, no matter how good the cause was. Behind closed doors, she told him she thought he was loud and mean. When he was that cocky, she thought his action didn't mean much. But if that moment made her feel bad emotionally, the next one would break her artistically. This time, Linda's trust was broken during a studio session in front of a full room of musicians with just one chilling line: "When genius becomes cruelty." This betrayal wasn't caused by backroom drama or public comments. David Bowie. Frank Zappa was avant-garde, unexpected, and known as the mad genius of experimental rock. Linda Ronstadt, on the other hand, was breaking barriers with her voice and was on the rise. On paper, it looked like a team effort that could have pushed the limits. It fell apart in just a few hours instead. It began with hope. Linda said she really wanted to record one of Zappa's songs. Things went wrong as soon as they walked into the room, though. With a smile, Zappa turned down her original idea, saying she sounded too clean. She was trying to water down his music, he said, making it sound like a business song instead of raw art. At its worst, the stress broke during a live practice. Right in the middle of the set, Zappa stopped the band. There was silence in the room. Then he laughed in front of everyone and said, "This is what happens when you give a pop singer real music." It got cold in the room. She didn't yell or argue, Linda. It was embarrassing for her, and she was done. She quietly packed up and left. She never came back, and she worked with Zappa no more. She didn't say anything in public, but behind the scenes, her close friends remember exactly what she said. She called Zappa clever but cruel, someone whose mind she admired but whom she could never trust again. Still, Having artistic disagreements with artists who were hard to work with was one thing. What did you do next? It hurt more than that, because the next person on her list wasn't a crazy genius or a crazy singer. Someone she used to call family, a fellow pioneer who betrayed her when it meant the most. David Crosby is the fallout from Laurel Canyon. Linda Ronstadt and David Crosby used to sound a lot like family when they were in Laurel Canyon. They shared more than just stages and studio time. They also had an unspoken faith that went back to the counterculture movement they both helped to create. In those days, it seemed like Crosby's duets and Linda's singing that could fit into a lot of different genres would always be together. But by 1978, there was no longer any peace. During a vocal practice for a track they were working on together, Linda asked for an easy key change so her voice would sound better. When she asked Crosby to help, he said, "You should learn to adapt." What started out as a small argument quickly became a big problem. They fought with angry words, and it didn't stop in the studio. Within days, word got out to the press, and it became one of the most talked about fights in the canyon. It didn't end there, though. Crosby told Rolling Stone that Linda was manufactured, which meant she was more of a product than a skill. Linda had built her whole career on her natural talent and creativity, so this was a blow she could never get over, a knife through the heart. She didn't answer questions in talks. She didn't. But she wasn't being inactive when she kept quiet. She moved in a quiet but clear way. People in her band and close group were not allowed to say his name. Artists in the studio were told not to talk about him. His songs was taken off of her tour sets. There was no longer any sign of him in her world. Linda thought Crosby had broken not only their friendship, but also their shared vision of what Laurel Canyon used to be like. In private, she saw him as a danger sign, proof that drugs, ego, and fame could take over even the smartest people. If Crosby's deception was personal, the next thing on her list was a colder one. A public jab that turned punk poetry into a cruel weapon. Provocation by punks. The insult to Elvis Costello in public. It was 1979, and Cleveland was a lively city. People from all walks of life had come together for a big event. Linda Ronstadt, who had just released a string of records that topped the charts, was one of the main acts and was at the top of her game. She was a well-known force. Nobody could take their eyes off of her that night, not even Elvis Costello. He was the new kid on the block. He was rude, smart, and didn't use filters much. He was punk rock's intelligent rebel with a grudge and something to prove. But what came next was a surprise. Costello made fun of Linda's set in front of a group of reporters, calling it background music for brunch. It wasn't just a jab, it was an insult in public. The comment got around quickly, and when Linda talked to him backstage, she was hoping to get more information, or maybe even an apology. But what she got was something completely different. Someone said Costello was drunk and cocky. He looked her in the eye, insulted her again, and then walked away without saying sorry. She didn't look back. She thought Elvis Costello stood for more than just one rude comment. He was a new type of artist, smart but cold, critical without mercy, brave but mean just for the sake of being mean. She didn't see any soul in his insult. She only saw ego. Still, the last loss on her list was worse than all of them put together. It wasn't a wild rock band or a brash newbie because of the last name. It was someone whose music should have gone well with hers. Something about their voice made it seem like fate was trying to put them together. But the fight was clear behind the scenes. The partnership that should have been a dream turned into a quiet war over whether to strive for perfection or take charge. Paul Simon's abrupt firing. In 1982, it looked like the ideal pairing. Paul Simon, who was one of the most famous musicians of the time, and Linda Ronstadt, who was known for singing in a lot of different styles. Fans and people in the music business were both thrilled when she decided to sing a duet with him on his upcoming record. It looked like a dream on paper. It was really a nightmare that got worse over time. Things didn't feel right from the first practice. Simon picked apart her performance, stopping takes to fix words that didn't need to be fixed. He changed the words without asking her first, and the singing advice he gave her seemed more like criticism with a thin veneer. Linda's friends and family say that she later said it felt like getting in trouble with a headmaster. Every note she sang was looked at closely but not backed up. The chemistry never came together. The spark of creativity died because of pride and condescension. The song was put away, never finished, never released, and never talked about for years. Linda, on the other hand, wasn't hurt by just one track. It was about being treated less than someone with her voice and work should have been treated. Instead of a partner, she got a boss. She made a promise to herself that she would never work with Paul Simon again after that. And with that last crack, Linda Ronstadt's silence on her biggest betrayals was broken for good. 7 players, 7 scars, all covered by years of class until now. Because every tune hides a story that no one hears until someone is brave enough to share it. She has never been one to feed the rumor mill, which is why she kept it quiet all these years. She let the music talk for decades. The truths being told are not about getting even, they're about telling the truth. Not only did she have ability, but she also had to deal with egos, betrayals, and a cruel business. She's not putting other people down by finally telling these stories. She's just lifting a veil, because the strength we find isn't always in the songs we sing, but in the quiet we break. Which of these stories made you feel the most shocked? Also, do you think Linda was right to keep quiet all those years? Tell us below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.